Hi everyone, it's Katrina. From storage unit fortunes to rare items hidden in walls, here are 8 amazing treasures that were found by accident. Hey, you never know, one day it could be you. Number 8. Gold Bongs. While excavating a kurgan in the Caucasus Mountains of southern Russia in 2013 to make way for some new power lines, a team led by Stavropol-based archaeologist Andrei Belinsky unexpectedly hit pay dirt. A pair of pure gold containers dating back some 2,400 years that likely belonged to ancient royalty. The items, which were buried in a rectangular stone chamber concealed by a thick layer of clay, contained black residue and bore a suspicious resemblance to the popular modern smoking device known as a bong. Perhaps you've heard of it. Criminologists tested the substance and found traces of opium and cannabis, proving the crew's suspicions about the item's purported uses to be true. Further testing suggested that the gold bongs were also used to brew a drink made out of opium while cannabis burned nearby. Anton Gass, an archaeologist at the Prussian Cultural Heritage Foundation, stated that both drugs being used simultaneously is beyond doubt. The bongs are decorated with intricate designs depicting scenes of violent warfare, lending some credibility to Herodotus' account of the Bastard Wars, which erupted when the tribe's warriors returned home to find that their lonely wives had had children with their slaves. Gass referred to the rare ornate bongs, which shed light on the little-known culture of the Scythians, a nomadic warrior tribe, as a once-in-a-century discovery. The pair of bongs are the oldest known to exist. From the 9th century BC to the 4th century AD, the Scythians ruled over a vast area from Eastern Europe to Central Asia. It was customary for the Scythians to smoke opium and cannabis before entering battle to achieve an altered state of mind. The archaeologists found several other valuable but arguably less exciting gold items, including 3 cups, a ring, some neck rings, and a bracelet with a total weight of 7 pounds. Number 7. Rare Superman comic. In 2013, an experienced construction worker and home remodeler named David Gonzalez finally fulfilled his decade-long dream of stumbling upon hidden treasure on the job. Finally, right? Hoping for some good karma, Gonzalez had developed a ritual of occasionally placing $1 bills into the walls of homes he was working on for someone to discover during future repairs. While demolishing the wall of a fixer-upper home he had purchased for $10,000 in Elbow Lake, Minnesota, Gonzalez discovered a rare Action Comics #1 comic book among some newspapers that had been used to insulate the wall. The comic book dated back to June 1938 and featured the very special first appearance of a legendary character on the cover, Superman. Unsure of what the treasure was worth, Gonzalez decided to auction it off online with the help of Comic Connect, a New York City-based internet auction website. On a scale of 1 to 10, the aged comic scored a mere 1.5, thanks partially to a tear it incurred at the hands of one of Gonzalez's in-laws, which devalued it by at least $75,000. Whoops. Despite its low rating, the comic book was especially unique compared to most other known copies of Action Comics #1 by virtue of only having had one owner and remaining inside that wall for over 70 years, thus remaining unknown in the collecting world prior to Gonzalez's discovery. The comic book sold for $175,000, but that wasn't the end of the humble working man's good luck. In late 2017, Gonzalez found another rare comic inside the walls of the same house, Superman #4, released in the spring of 1940. He decided to auction it off again through Comic Connect, and it was predicted that the vintage comic book would fetch somewhere between $500 and $5,000. What would you pay for it? Let me know in the comments below. Number 6. $500,000 in a storage unit. When a man from San Jose, California, known only as John, bid on an abandoned storage unit in 2011, he was probably hoping to make a small profit from whatever was inside. He had paid $1,100 for the unit's contents. At first, the unit appeared to contain nothing of significant value. Inside of an inconspicuous dusty Rubbermaid bin, however, John discovered $500,000 worth of gold and silver. The auction was held by American auctioneers, the subject of the popular Storage Wars show on the A&E channel. However, there were no cameras present when the treasure was found. Darn it! It reportedly took 3 men to remove the container from the unit. Laws revolving around the auctioning off of storage units vary by state. In California, if rent on a storage unit goes more than 3 months unpaid, the unit's contents can be put up for auction. The unit purchased by John had belonged to an elderly woman who had passed away several months prior to the auction. When a unit goes up for auction, prospective buyers are given 5 minutes to examine its contents from the outside. Then the bidding starts. John was reportedly attracted to the unit simply because the Rubbermaid tote appeared clean and easy to move. Boy, was he ever wrong in a good way. And now for number 5. But first, have you ever found any treasures by accident? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe and click the bell if you are new here. Number 5. Vintage Star Wars toys. Some parents can't seem to part with any of their kids' childhood items, pledging to keep them in storage forever as an alternative to getting rid of them. These were before the days of Marie Kondo and her method. One man named Stephen Hoffer probably ended up thanking his parents for hanging on to his boyhood treasures. While the only child was visiting his parents' San Francisco house one day, he decided to rummage through their attic. Inside some dusty old boxes that hadn't been opened in some 30 years, he discovered 50 original Star Wars toys that were long forgotten until that moment. The toys, which were in mint condition and released during the 70s, were valued somewhere in the neighborhood of $10,000. Hoffer sold the toys in bulk to a local comic book store, where the employees were blown away but didn't want to show their full enthusiasm, he reported. You know, trying to keep it cool, I bet. Some of Hoffer's friends encouraged him to hang on to the toys for a few more years to see if their value increased significantly. However, things were tight at the time for the musician, who claimed he had no personal attachment to the toys. I'm sure someone else will get them who really enjoys them. Number 4. Railroad signs. Back in 2009, married couple Ian and Linda Spires of the United Kingdom emptied out the attic of their recently purchased home so they could move ahead with plans to insulate their roof. While they were cleaning, the husband and wife team noticed lettering on the floorboards. A previous occupant of their home had incorporated 49 railroad signs bearing the names of various destinations from the steam engine era into the flooring. The 1-inch thick boards are believed to have been taken by one of the home's previous owners during the 1960s, when they were scrapped. There were other homeowners in between, but Ian and Linda were the first to notice the literal treasure trove of floorboards in the attic. In fact, the couple had only owned the house for a few months when the discovery was made. After finding the signs, Ian contacted a friend who was a rail enthusiast, who got him in touch with an auctioneer who specialized in railroad memorabilia. Pretty specific stuff. The goods were valued at £20,000. 8 of the signs were purchased by music mogul Pete Waterman, who has an appreciation for trains and owns the London and North Western Railway Heritage Company, which restores and maintains vintage steam engines. Number 3. The Fenwick Treasure. In September 2014, a box of 2,000-year-old jewelry was found during excavations beneath a Fenwick department store in Colchester, Britain's oldest recorded town. Inside the box were 26 coins, along with an array of gold and silver jewelry, including 5 rings, 2 gold bracelets, 2 pairs of earrings, 2 silver bracelets, and a silver armlet. The treasure, which dates back to 60 or 61 AD, belonged to a wealthy woman who hurriedly buried it in anticipation of an attack on the area by warrior Queen Boudica, the leader of the British Celtic Iceni tribe, who led an uprising against the region's occupying Roman forces. Nobody knows what happened to the jewelry's owner, but it's believed she may have been killed, a common fate for wealthy Roman women captured by the Iceni forces. Don't worry about the Romans, though. You know how that goes. The Fenwick Group donated the hoard to the Colchester Council, and it has been put on display at Colchester Castle. Number 2. A huge black truffle. I bet food and fungus are 2 of the last things you'd expect to see in this video, but you know how I love to keep you on your toes and make sure you're paying attention. In 2014, one lucky farmer in New South Wales, Australia, unearthed the biggest black truffle ever grown on the continent. Truffle producer Ted Smith, who usually relies on his dog to detect his goods, spotted this 1.172 kilogram beauty sticking out of the soil with his own naked eye. At first, Ted was unsure of the value of the bulbous truffle because it was too heavy for his scale and set off an alarm. He took it to the post office where a bigger scale was available. Finding a truffle this big is extremely uncommon, even for a truffle farmer like Ted. While he hopes to eventually produce another truffle of such a lucrative size, it probably won't happen, and he wasn't expecting it in the first place. The French black Perigord fungus is worth roughly $2,000 per kilogram, but the final price of Ted's find is unknown, as he sold it to a local restaurant and winery for an undisclosed amount. Number 1. Ty Cobb baseball cards. One California family was lucky to strike it big twice while clearing out their late great-grandfather's home. The first time, a family member found 7 incredibly rare Ty Cobb baseball cards inside of a tattered old brown paper bag. The cards had been printed between 1909 and 1911 and came with tobacco purchases. It's likely that Great-Gramps had no clue he was leaving a fortune to his descendants, as he wasn't even a collector. More than likely, according to one family member, he simply held onto the cards without considering their potential value. If someone hadn't looked inside that crumpled brown bag, they would have accidentally thrown $1 million into the garbage. As if this find wasn't lucky enough, the family eventually found the 8th and final card to complete the set. That final card, which 24 known copies exist, was valued at $250,000. Satisfied with the proceeds of the first 7 cards, the family decided to keep the 8th card as a memento. Wouldn't it be nice to feel like whether or not to sell a baseball card worth that much money was actually a choice? For one lucky family, it was. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe, and in the meantime, have fun daydreaming about the day you might unexpectedly come across hidden treasure. Hey, it could happen. See you next time. Bye!